everyone, and welcome to another episode of Community. This one is so special because I have one of my favorite life humans, but business besties, Carly here, who is officially, I'm going to say it, you're officially a best-selling author. Even though it's next week that it comes out, I know you're going to be a best-selling author. So Carly, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here finally on the podcast. It's like the perfect timing.
Yay. Well, yeah, Carly and I have done lots together, so many good things. We've run Collab Party twice, which we have to do again. And we just need to bring it back. But we ran these two events about collaboration, the power of relationships and networking and all of that, which was amazing. We had great panels, and even the panels that we put together, great collaborations have come from that. That's the first time I met Virginia, and now she's super embedded at High Vibe Women. And then met Dana. Dana's hosting part of the VIP night. Yes. So you have all these awesome collaborations, and so of course that was a no brainer. But what's been so cool of you and I is that we both run marketing agencies. Some competing services, but have passed clients back and forth, and love to kind of collaborate as much as possible, which was kind of the heart behind Collab Party. And then Carly is now launching her amazing book. I have read most of it. By the time you listen to it, I've read all of it because I get to do a Q&A with Carly.
You have a baby.
I have a baby, yes. I do have a baby, but also no excuse. But honestly, I've already taken so many notes, and it's so magical. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you and kind of what led you to writing this book? Because I know it's been such a big piece of really your soul. It's not you're doing this for business. It's soul.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God. Thank you for that. I am the owner of a boutique marketing agency called Web of Words, and we are celebrating 10 years this year. And I think anytime you hit that kind of big milestone, it gets you thinking a lot about, okay, what do maybe the next 10 years look like? Mm-hmm. So I feel like that was a big turning point for me. And so this year especially, I really became aware that around the whole saying of what got you here isn't what's going to get you there. And I also grew my business while growing my family and going through a lot personally, which we'll get into, and I share a lot of that detail in the book. But I really realized that this year I had to do things completely differently. And so that was a big motivator for putting my foot on the gas to get this book out into the world. It's something that I've been working on for around 3 years now. Wow. But this year especially, it just felt like a big turning point for me. So I also feel like the process of writing this book, it's been such a huge identity shift. And I kind of have always felt that this book is going to be the reason that everything changes. And it's not the book itself, it's the process of writing my story, sharing it, putting it out into the world, and truly embodying all these practices that I write about in a whole different way.
Yeah. Sometimes it is so much I know it's cheesy, but about the journey.
Yeah.
Even when I find on the marketing side, right? Sometimes it's about the story, not necessarily the ending of it. So tell us a little bit about the process of writing a book. I think a lot of people have been using books. We're both friends with Amanda, who I know has been your publisher. We've got Jake too, and lots of great people. Marsha, lots of people who are bringing books to life. But yeah, tell us a little bit about the process of making that choice and stepping into that role of being an author.
Yeah. Honestly, writing a book and becoming an author has been a dream on my heart for as long as I can remember.
Because you're a writer.
I am a writer first, and that's always kind of been, since a young age, I wanted to be a writer. And then I almost feel like I got into journalism in school, and I almost feel like I kind of sidetracked in a way that I fell into marketing. And I love that I did, and I love where that's taken me and what I've built and how we're able to support our clients and the work that we do. But I really feel like this was kind of a return to my most authentic self and my most authentic dreams and desires. Those dreams that we tend to kind of put on in the back seat because we come up with all the reasons why now is not the right time. Yeah. Or the limiting beliefs around my story's not powerful enough, I'm not good enough. I had to work through a lot of that in order to bring it to life. But I just feel like I came to this head where I was like, I'm going to stop putting this goal that's been at the top of my list for literally as long as I can remember. I'm such a goal-oriented person. I love to make my goal list or my manifestation list now. And it's been at the top, and I keep just the year goes by, and then it bumps back down, and then I put it back at the top. And so I just really decided, okay, no more excuses. This is a time that I'm making it happen. And it didn't make sense. I couldn't understand the how, and I didn't let myself get distracted by that. I had to just kind of take it one step at a time, write one paragraph, one page, and a lot of it was inspired by past journal entries, and like literally I'd be like writing notes in my phone, and I always am journaling, so it just kind of was really messy at the beginning, and I let it be messy, and then the clarity came in time, as it does, with action, with practice, and really bringing it to life.
How do you find, like, for you as somebody who, would you call yourself type A?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, I didn't want to call you type A for yourself.
Yeah. Interestingly, motherhood has kind of actually helped me embrace more like type B mom. But yes.
I'm a type C human, so it's fine. But I'm curious, like, with the type A aspect of even this dream, like, I know even for myself, sometimes I see dreams and I can't see, like, the how on something, right? Like, I have a few dreams in my heart that I'm like, it's not a today thing, but it's coming, but I just can't figure out how. And I don't feel like the necessarily that like lunge to or like I should lunge towards it right now. But how did you kind of build up the confidence to be able to be like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm just going to get going?
Yeah. I think it literally was just the practice of taking those small steps every day and focusing on one little step at a time and not putting too much pressure on myself in terms of like major deadline, although this year I did put a big deadline in place and I really put a lot of accountability in place. But I had to kind of just let myself before that just get in the creative zone, let it flow the way that it was meant to, and build the habits and behaviors of the identity of the published author, the best-selling author, hopefully.
No, hopefully it's done. I'm editing that out. Just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, start actually. And to me, the biggest tip for writing that I've always followed is like, if you want to be a writer, get your ass in the chair and write.
Yeah.
So, let it be messy. It was a lot of just free flow writing for me, which is also why this is like such a healing journey for me and such a soulful journey for me too. Because it was never really about the strategy of like writing a business book and what this is going to do for the business. It really was for myself first.
Yeah. Well, that's actually like the best way to do almost anything, right? Even sometimes business stuff is like not to like hold such a grip on it that it's like it needs to have a return on your investment fast, or it needs to have like, whatever outcome you're looking for. It's like allowing things to just like be sometimes and seeing like the fruits of the labor.
Absolutely. Such an important lesson. And you're someone that I look up to in that, and the way that you do have these dreams in your heart and make them happen quickly. And, like I said, I feel like this dream for me has been a lifetime in the making. But at the same time, such an important reminder that it's never too late. And, you can always shift and pivot and do something new. And I think most importantly, create this space for yourself to actually hear those whispers when they're coming through and let yourself dream and get yourselves in the rooms that inspire you to dream bigger and differently. I'm a small town girl. So, I really let myself stay small for a lot of the early stages of my business. I just wanted to write for a living. Like I was just like freelance writing. This is, and it's become something so much beyond what I envisioned. But I think a big part of that was that I just couldn't picture how it could be any. I couldn't dream bigger because I didn't know what that could possibly look like.
Yeah, me and Maria have been talking about this concept lately, and people will hear it come up on the podcast because we talked about it a few times in later episodes. But this idea of like you cannot be what you don't see. And that's been such a driver for me around like, getting into rooms and masterminds and things like that, where like I was at an event last week in New York, and the guy I'm standing next to, like so random. And he's like, oh yeah, we do like 20 million revenue, but like I'm growing this thing to 100 million. And I was like, oh God, like that's crazy. And like in a way that's not my goal, but like so possible. And just was like, he's just this like random man from Kentucky. Like, why not me?
Why not me?
Yeah.
Exactly. I love that. And I think there's two sides of that is A, seeing the people that are doing it to believe it's possible for you and getting in that close proximity, but then also knowing that you can do it your way and that you don't have to do it their way. And that's why you've been an expander for me in terms of the way that you've grown your business. But at the same time, I knew that the way that you grew your business wasn't for the way that I could grow in the season of life that I was in when we first connected, where you're traveling and going to all these events and getting in these rooms. And so I was actually reflecting on that kind of on the way here too, and just thinking about how cool it is that like now my book can get in these rooms for me. And like you took the book to New York on your trip, and I told you, I'm like, send me pictures. My book's living my travel dreams. Because the reality is I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I have to be very intentional in this season of my life, what I'm saying yes to. So I had to get creative with finding a way of like, okay, how can I how can I increase my impact and grow my visibility without me having to be there present in all these different places that take me away from my kids at the same time? And not to say the book didn't take me away from my kids, because that did happen as well. But
I think that's the like entrepreneurial struggle. Like so many people, it was so funny. I was talking to someone yesterday and he was like, "Oh, so great, you have a baby." Like you don't get EI. And I was like, that's such a weird thing for you to say, like, haha. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, I was like, but I get the trade-off of choosing, like, you know, to be with Jack as much as I want to be, and tons. And also like doing things like this where I'm like, hey, I'm going to be with him all morning. And then it's one of my teammates' lunch. It's his first birthday. And then now you and I get to record it and you're going to come to my house and meet my son. Like, you know, we get to build like this amazing life. But it doesn't come without, like, I always love this idea of like choices, not sacrifices. Mm-hmm. Like it comes with like choice. And like sometimes that feels like, you know, I still see events right now where I'm like, oh my God, I wish I could go to that. Like that looks sick. But also like right now my priority is my family, and like that's also okay.
Yeah. And even that, even within our business and motherhood journeys, can look so different from each other too, right? It so depends. Like you're in a completely different season of motherhood than I am. My kids actually have a little more independence now, although at the same time they also know how to pull the heartstrings when I'm leaving and what, you know, like when I'm coming back. And right now those emotional JK drop-offs are just like, I have to gear up a whole other way of holding space. But that's the reality of it, right? And so I think there's that too, just not comparing your own journey, because like the village can look different, like the support can look different. There's so many variables that come into play. So that's why, building it around what feels good for you and asking the questions in these rooms and learning about other ways, but then taking those ingredients and really taking it to make your own recipe.
Yeah, no, I love that. And for you, like, not to make this too much of it, like, you know, obviously this is a business, but just thinking like, you've built your business like in a lot of ways very steadily. Mm-hmm. You know, where it's been like growing with your family over time. Your husband works with you. Hi, Luke. Your husband works with you. Like, you know, like you've taken mat leaves while having your business. Like you've been off. Like, you know, you've done different things, right? And it's really sustained your family. How do you balance you know, you're watching other people grow their businesses. Maybe they're faster. Maybe they're slower. Like, how have you balanced being able to like kind of keep your head straight and keep like kind of moving forward with some of these other goals?
Yeah, I think the sustainability piece was really important for me. And I think what I probably didn't realize at the time was how much like my identity shift also had to keep up with that. Like I talked about how when I first started, I think I was probably in a very different space than maybe you or other people were when they first started their business, where like for me, it was really just doing what I loved, and the fact that and having the freedom to get up every day and get to do this work. I didn't have like a big revenue goal, or I didn't even really think of it as a business at that time. It was just me following my passion and getting paid to do what I love.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then that shifted when Luke joined the business just about a year in. And he really opened my eyes as he had brought his dreams in and showed me, okay, actually, we can do this a different way. This can be something even bigger and better than I let myself imagine. So I got to lean on his belief in that, and just trust in what we can create together and how well we work together, even though we had so much to figure out and learn the hard way in that process. And I think that just continues. I, get to see how other people are doing it. And for sure, sometimes I slip into the comparison and I'm like, oh, like I will have a little bit of regret of wishing that I did something differently. But then at the same time, like I can easily let that go and just be in gratitude that the way that I grew my business was the way that it needed to grow to support my lifestyle and, the way that I was able to grow my family and be there for them. And I think the fact is, 3 years ago, I didn't have the capacity to have the business growth that I have today.
Totally.
Then.
Yeah, no, I love that. Because honestly, something I really respect about you, Carly, and like I tell you this all the time, and you're like, ha ha ha, humble Carly. But like, Carly is, when if I was to sketch, can't draw, but if I was to sketch out a high vibe woman, you would be like what comes up, because you have the best mindset when it comes to business, life, like growth, like everything you do is like touched with so much intentionality, which like I love, but also like you can find beauty in like everything, which I think so much for your book, like reading it, like I was like, oh, like that's a shitty situation or a tough situation or like even a bad feeling, even if it's not like, capital T trauma kind of thing, in like certain areas. But I'm still like, wow, like look what you've gleaned from that. Like look what you've been able to take away from that. So obviously I think, as you've reflected your book through your writing, like how do you maintain perspective like that? How do you be able to look at things and be able to be like high vibe, air quotes, about it?
I do kind of feel like that is something that's just innately part of me a little bit too. I do feel like I've always kind of been the type of person who sees the silver linings or looks for the silver linings. And some people might roll their eyes hearing me say that, but I really do feel like that's how I've kind of always naturally felt. Don't get me wrong, I can absolutely get pulled away from that and like ask my husband, ask Luke when, sassy, fiery Aries Carly can come out. Like she definitely can. But I think a big part of it is the gratitude of it and just recognizing like I feel so grateful for the lessons and the hard stuff and, my like whether that was through hard lessons learned kind of through my upbringing and childhood to how I grew my business to, personal experiences and traumas along the way. Mm-hmm. I do just very much feel like they all shaped me into who I am now and created the opportunities that I have now. I really just feel like I kind of try to look at the big picture and remembering. And so I do remember that when I'm in the thick of it too, which is so hard when you're in the middle of it. And don't get me wrong, I spiral and I'm like, why is this happening to me? That's happened many times. But I'm able to pull myself out of that and just remember that I do believe that there's a reason. I do believe this is teaching me something and giving me the resilience and the strength to be able to step into the identity of that person. Like, for example, with motherhood and struggling to get pregnant, I do feel like going through that experience prepared me for motherhood in a way that I wouldn't have been otherwise and let me show up as a mom in a way that I wouldn't have if I hadn't taken on that identity, that experience.
Totally. Do you think that, like in particular instance, but like probably like other things that had kind of come up in your book and in your life, like has helped you cultivate like more gratitude? Like, do you feel like that's like a practice in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. And whenever I'm finding myself out of alignment or, feeling like spiraling, like this whole journey, even in putting this book out into the world has been such a stretch and such a growth journey. So I've been really leaning into those tools of like, bringing my gratitude journal back out. And that was a big one for me in those early postpartum days. And it's so fun to reflect on now, just the little moments of gratitude in my journal about like my daughter laughing for and just like, her laughing at something I said and the way that she, danced in the kitchen that day or just those little moments that really make you realize that that's actually what it's all about.
Yeah. No, I love that. And it's like finding those small things, like I think, and noticing them.
Yes.
And I think whether that's in life or in business, like that's something Maria and I have also, like we really, really try where we're like, because when you're in it, you run a big business too. Like sometimes you're like, oh, like we were talking about this summer where business was kind of slow for both of us. Mm-hmm. And we were like, oh God. And sometimes you're like, am I closing this thing down? Like, is this the end? But sometimes then that's the best time where Maria and I are like, okay, like we know it's not the end. And like, here's the small thing we get to celebrate. We get to celebrate like we have an awesome like team or like we have like one great interaction with a client or like somebody tells us how everyone changed their life or their business. Like those are the things that we get to like generate some excitement around. But it's really hard to cultivate that practice when you're down, but it's necessary.
Yeah. And I think for me, just remembering how everything is a season, in life and in business. I remember telling myself that so much in motherhood, when certain things would come up that would be like, as soon as you feel like you're starting to figure it out, the next challenge hits and you're just like, okay, never mind. And I do realize that as they get older too, like it's, that kind of saying around how it's, the problems feel a little bit bigger in terms of the challenge that they bring, like it doesn't feel like it at the time when you're lack of sleep and just trying to figure out how to survive the day. But then as they get older and you're having to explain these like bigger world concepts to them and help them with like their friends at school and like bullying and stuff like that.
I'm not ready for that.
Right? But all of it is preparing you to be ready too. So there's no fast forward button. I think that's so important. We always like want the instant gratification and we want to like get to the reward and get to the other side, but we forget the journey is preparing us to actually be able to step into that identity and hold space for what is coming.
Yeah. So when talking about that, like that stepping into your most favorite self or your like best self or whatever that feels like what did you have to do? I know you mentioned like, stepping into being that best-selling author, but like what have been some of the moves you've had to make in the last year to be able to make this happen for yourself?
Yeah, I think what happened for me was kind of coming out of motherhood really shifted my schedule a ton, right? It teaches you how to juggle in different ways. And it took up a lot of space in my calendar in those early years. And then as my kids were a little bit more independent and we had more childcare, I realized, okay, I can't go back to filling my calendar the way that I did before kids. How am I actually going to fill that time? So that was a part of how I was truly kind of stepping into like the CEO energy of the business and made a big shift for me there. I think before I was so caught up in the doing and the day-to-day. I wasn't truly like being the CEO and holding the vision and focusing on like building the relationships to that extent that I could. So that was part of it. And then I feel like, again, I kind of went through another shift where, you know, I had a little bit more of that space where my kids were sleeping through the night and I'd get creative in the evening after bedtime. And that's when I did a lot of writing. And as I got into it, it was so addicting. Like I realized how in alignment I was writing this book and editing too. Actually, I loved the editing process. And it's just a reminder to like remember that work that you do, that you lose track of time. You completely forget to eat lunch. Like if Luke wasn't there during the day to tell me to eat lunch, I would completely forget half the time. But that guy will not forget his mealtime schedule. But that kind of, what is that work that you're doing that just like you're so in the flow? And for me, that's what this was. So it was really kind of, like I said, a coming back to where I felt most myself. And that's what I when I talk about your favorite self, a concept I use in the book, it's really coming back to what feels most in alignment to you, what feels most authentic to you. And I think if you don't take the time to slow down and actually notice and get aware of that, then you just fill your time with things that actually distract you from the ultimate goal and from being in line with your purpose.
Yeah, especially as you're like growing in whatever it is that you're doing business-wise. Like if you don't do the things that light you up, it starts to become dark in business, you know, because you're not doing the stuff that actually is like energizing. And actually for me, stepping into being a mom, the best part about this for me is like everyone gave me so much advice about how much time I should take off. Like everyone was like, oh, take a year or don't take time or whatever it was. And early on, I was kind of like, I don't see myself not working at all. But like now it's been like I really only do the stuff that is like hugely needle moving or I love doing. Like that's it. Like I just can't afford any other time. So it's like when people ask me, they're like, can we do a random coffee chat? I'm like, can't afford it.
Yeah.
Like, and could I maybe make it work? Maybe. But like it's not a priority right now. So it's great to see like how much of it, like how many shifts you had to make. And something I've noticed from you in the season of launching, you've really like leveraged your network.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have seen you really like nurture and like, and the nice thing is when you grow your network without having an ask, which is what you've been doing for probably these last 10 years, now that you have a bit of an ask, everyone's like tripping over themselves to like support you, right? Like everybody, your launch party sold out in like 1 second. I'm like, I want these high vibe women energy over here, but launch party sells out in 1 second. Everyone I talk to is going. Like everyone's like, see you at Carly's launch party. You came up in our call, our High Vibe Women membership call the other day. And everyone's like, oh, who's going to the launch party? So it was cute. But so like there's that. There's also like, you know, you're doing this like podcast tour where you're going to like kind of all these podcasts of all these people who are like so excited to have you on. Like we were gonna do it online. I was like, no, we must like do this IRL like together, right? Like everyone's like, okay, how can we support the book? How can we buy the books? How can we be there, right? And I think people really want to support you. And so it looks like you've had to like really leverage your community and your network.
That makes me really emotional, like you mirroring that back to me, because probably other than seeing my kids get to hold the book in their hands and like realize, maybe not so much my 4-year-old, like but definitely my daughter who's
Flush
7
is like,
now.
Cool book.
yeah. But they both like ran and put it on their bookshelves. And then Kennedy started asking me to read to her. I'm like very selective with which chapters I'm reading at bedtime. So other than that, and just like being able to be that proof of possibility for them of their dreams coming true, the way that my community has shown up for me in this, and I feel like it's so much more than like promoting the book. It's really, I feel like in some time, there's been the moments where like they've carried me through to the finish line, or over certain humps that I had to get through. And I think that's what this is all about. I love being that for my people, you know, like, but that lights me up. That brings me so much joy. And so part of it was like letting myself receive that and ask for it, I guess, in some ways. There were moments where I had to catch myself where I'm kind of letting myself deal with parts alone, or like venting to Luke for the 1,000th time in this process, and realizing like, okay, no, I need to go and text Kristina and Maria about this, or text the quad pod or whatever, and lean on my people to help me, work through this and let them be that mirror to me and be the believers in me that remind me of my power and of my purpose and my why of why I'm doing this in the first place.
Yeah.
So I am like immensely grateful for those people in my life and the fact that the launch party sold out like that and people are so pumped about it and like the messages I'm getting from like early readers too, it's just like already made it so worth it.
Yeah.
And it just like, it makes my heart just want to completely come out of my chest.
Well, it's amazing because something like a book, like, so everybody I know has a business book, like most people I know have business books, right? Right?
I don't know. I think you can say that or like everybody wants to write a book, but I actually realized how lonely I felt on this journey as part.
Really?
I think I used to think that. And then there were moments where I was like, okay, actually, and maybe it was just my own actually network too. I realized I had to get, find some more expanders in that area too. But I do actually feel like it's kind of the thing that I feel like you talk about and you think everybody wants to do or is doing. But I mean, the stats actually show that it is a small percentage that are doing it. And that was part of my journey too. I was like feeling like I had to find people who could truly relate to what I was going through in that moment. At least not so much a business book, but like a very vulnerable,
that's what I mean,
personal book. Yeah.
Because like I have lots of friends, and obviously in my circle too, like I've been in like masterminds with tons of 7-figure entrepreneurs, like, so they see the power of like all the different marketing channels. Like, sometimes people are doing things. As a marketer, I'm like, what is that? Like, I don't even know what that is or how to leverage that, Today, actually, we just got our first message of someone being like, could you do my social in Spanish? And I'm like, could we do her social in Spanish? Like you ask the questions. But what's interesting is like, I think for you, your book has been like so soulful. Mm-hmm. Like it is like, there is a business element to it. And there's like lessons in there definitely that can be applied to business. But like really, it looks like it's like such a piece of your soul, and your business community are the people who are like rallying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that I feel like in some ways the book kind of wrote itself. Mm-hmm. Like it just came out. I didn't really have a clear idea of exactly what it was going to look like, and I actually had a lot of push and pull around like, is this more of a business book or is it a personal development book? Where does this fit in? And I had to let go of like what category this book would fit into and just let it come into what it was meant to be. And that was a big part of the process too, and kind of surrendering to that. But yeah, I think like having other readers reflect back the lessons that they've learned and what they've enjoyed out of it has helped affirm that and validate that for me too. Mm-hmm. I've shared this a lot in the process of how much like I wrote the book for myself. I had to I had to write it for me and let myself just go there. Yeah. And then in the editing process, I was really starting to shape it for my reader and like have a very clear idea of who that was and but also deeply trust that like if I needed this, if this was a book that I wish I had when I was in my starting out in my motherhood journey, starting out in my business, when I like lost our home in a fire, then that's going to be the book someone else needs too.
Mm-hmm. What I love about that is like so many two things. One is that like you're such an expander for other people, even though you might not admit that for yourself. Like I think so many people look up to you, and I think this is such a great opportunity for people to see like you kind of very fully, like not just like, what they might see online. But the other thing I was going to say as well is that like, I really just believe that not everything needs to, and I mentioned this earlier, but like not everything that we do has to be related to business. Mm-hmm. And even like, and I'm saying that, so even though someone asked me at this event we were at last week, they're like, what do you do for fun? I was like, I'm a new mom. So I like hang out with my child. And they're like, oh, like, what'd you do before then? I was like, working. I worked a lot. Like, and that's been a huge identity for me of trying to unpack of like, what do I actually like doing other than having deep relationships with friends and like doing stuff and seeing the Arkells in concert. Like that's pretty much like all of my qualities that I like. But this I think has so much opportunity to have a business ROI. I'm putting it in air quotes, but bigger, it has so much opportunity for impact. And all that stuff kind of funnels together. It's like you can meet clients like anywhere. Like you can impact people personally, and that lead to your professional life. Like, and I think I love how like in writing this, it would have been really easy, especially to justify to Luke, but it would have been really easy to be like, this is gonna be a great way to grow our agency. Mm-hmm. This is gonna be a massive personal brand play, And you were kind of like, no, I'm staying true to my message, and really like coming home to myself or whatever that looks like, and sharing this message with other people. I know it's just gonna be impactful. And you've already kind of seen the fruits of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it came down to trusting and remembering that when I am like fully in my authenticity, that is my highest frequency. That's when I am the most magnetic. And just, we get so caught up as marketers, especially in the strategy. And that was like my kind of previous like type A, when I built the business, it was so strategy led and focused. And so a lot of this book is about how I actually really tapped more into leading with my intuition in a lot of ways, and doing the inner work that, the strategy is absolutely there, and not saying that you throw that out the window by any means. But that was a shift that I had to learn. I had to learn to actually do a lot more of that inner work to be able to support the strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget the question that you asked me.
No, totally. Like that, not everything needs to have ROI. Like
yes, exactly. So I do think it's that deep trust, and like it's a big investment. It's in my time, in my energy, and financially. It's very vulnerable, putting myself out there. So like it has tested my self-trust in so many ways, and that's what I mean about like it being this tool and taking on this whole other identity, and that is truly what I think is the ROI.
Yes.
More so than the book or the funnel that you build around the book is the identity shift of who you become in the process of sharing something that feels so authentic to you and vulnerable in a lot of ways, and then like leaning on your community to help you bring it to life.
Yeah. Well, okay, question for you. Like, so this is obviously something that's been on your heart for a long time, right? So you thinking about this. What was the catalyst of you being like, today is the day?
Oh my God, you, Kristina. I promise that wasn't a setup, that question. But I think I have mentioned this to you, but I want to reiterate. So I do feel like I said, this is kind of it was about 3 years ago, January 2023, where I was like, okay, this is the year I'm actually taking steps and making this happen. And I made some investments. I invested in some coaching. I invested in a mastermind for authors. And it started to take shape. And I was doing a little bit of writing behind the scenes. Yes. And then that kind of continued, but it plateaued. And there were months where I wasn't doing anything for the book, but it was still like very much at the forefront.
And always this concept?
In terms of like what the book, I feel like it was very much going to be rooted in storytelling and share. I knew that in order to write a book rooted in storytelling, I had to be willing to go first and share my story in a way that I never had before. Yeah. So that was very much like it shaped around that. But this year, it was really the Boss Mode retreat in January. And being able to be in this space where I just felt like I could show up so authentically and feel supported and have you and Jeanette holding that space for me and everybody else that was in the room. But you mentioned to me at that time too that you wanted me to be part of the next High Vibe Women in October. We hadn't even had the March High Vibe Women yet at that point. And I think it was on the drive home. I sent you a voice note and it was like a light bulb moment. And I was like, Kristina, this is the year, like you've lit a fire under me. I am making the book happen this year. And I think at that point, I probably had maybe half of it written in the rough draft. And the rough draft ended up being like 33,000 words. The final draft is like high 60s. So it's like almost doubled in the editing process. I cut a lot, but I also added a lot. And anyway, that really was kind of, it just gave me a very clear, and I had this ping, which again, is slowing down at the retreat, giving myself time. A big focus for me at that retreat was recognizing in the conversations I was having, especially with you and Jeanette, like I need to do things differently. I've plateaued in business. I felt like that. I knew I needed to make a big change this year.
And I thought, sorry to interrupt because this is your story, but like, and you're the guest, but like, also part of our conversations, I hope you don't mind me sharing this, was like you weren't being, I think, fully seen for like the immense value you offer. Like we were having this conversation about storytelling, right? And like you weren't the first person to come to mind when we were talking about storytelling. And you're like, why wasn't I the first person to come to mind for that? And I was like, oh my God, like I'm so sorry, but like I never thought of you in that light because I think you design websites. And like, but then you were like, I'm so much more than that, and being able to like really like shift that, I think too, like in the way you talk about yourself, I think is very powerful.
Yeah, and I think we all kind of need our own medicine, right? So for me, I realized that was a big part of my story, and what you'll read about in the book is like how I was hiding behind the keyboard a lot, and especially in the early stages of my business, I was promoting all my clients' businesses and helping them share their story and get step into their power. But I'm just hiding behind their stories. That was my reality. Didn't realize that at the time. Not really putting the focus on growing my business. Everything's referral based, But yeah, anyway, so I feel like I had that kind of light bulb moment in January, and then I got home and I was like, I'm an action taker. So once that switched for me, I really started diving back into the writing and felt more clarity came with that action. It all started kind of to come to life. And then March High Vibe Women, a big part of, as often is the case, a big kind of theme of the day was like really speaking your dream out loud and sharing it in these different like kind of networking exercises and stuff. And so there were multiple times where I found myself sharing that I'm writing a book and going to be publishing a book this year. And so that was the first time I really spoke it out loud in that kind of space, which immediately came with some accountability because I knew there was a High Vibe coming up in October, and here I am telling you I'm making this happen. And I think that was a big part of it. And then from there, I started kind of sharing it online. It was really kind of like when I had that rough draft of the first manuscript written, and I shared that and really like put it out there, that it added again a whole other layer of community or accountability. And I leaned on my community to hold me accountable in helping me bring this dream to life.
Yeah, you've done such a good job of like the behind the scenes of writing a book. Like, and I think that's something that like for anyone selling anything, it's like really that like beauty of people being part of this journey with you, that it's like, I feel like I have been there since day one, but there's like all these people who probably feel like they've been there with you since day one. They're so excited to buy. They've been like along the journey. You've sent out advanced copies to people. Like, you know, you've done like the work of like bringing your community in on seeing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think again that like that felt a very natural part of the process to me, to be honest. Not to say that it wasn't uncomfortable, don't get me wrong. But I think, you know, it kind of comes back to that conversation that we're having just around like, how you are leaning on the community in that way. And for me, it just felt right to bring them along in the journey. And I think kind of coming back to that, that's what I was trying to circulate back to, the hiding piece. I also just feel like this is, when I say that this is me and my most authentic self, part of that is like that form of like long form writing and creating. I think what unfortunately social media has done is like put all this pressure on us to share our story in these 60-second reels. And, you know, the reality is that's actually not my favorite way to share. And I love the in-person connection. I'm like,
I love words.
Let's cut the small talk. Let's dive deep. Like, let's have, you know, a cup of coffee, a glass of wine, and really get into it. And so I felt like this book let me do that in a way that showing up on social media, I couldn't ever show up as my full self in the same way as I could with the book. So it opened my eyes to that, first of all, and just, you know, even as someone who's literally been in this space, evolving along with it for the last 10 plus years, it's still challenging to be your most authentic self online and show the full picture. And it's a constant lesson of refining certain messaging and understanding how your audience is, you know, understanding. But the process of writing a book and getting your story in this, like, as long form as you possibly could, really was so powerful for me, and really like seeing my story that way, and actually also like having the confidence to be like, oh, no, my story is actually really powerful. And I do think it's going to help a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that confidence is huge, because how many times do people like, I think especially with books, but I see it a lot with podcasts, where people are like so nervous to start a podcast because they're like, well, who's going to want to listen to me? Who wants to hear my message? Who's like interested in this? And, like, it's always those people that pop off.
Yeah.
Like, it's the people who don't need the mic who, like, you know, are, like, it's fine. But, like, the people who it's, like, this is their, like, their calling. You can tell there's something there that they need to talk about. We met these two girls this weekend who are amazing. They run Trove. Yes. And so we became friends with them, and they were amazing. And they're likely to launch a podcast, and we were having a conversation about it. And their philosophy behind it was so beautiful. And I was like, people need this message, like, about what you're talking about. And it's the same thing with a book. Like, so what would you say to somebody who's listening to this and they, like, might have a book on their heart or a podcast on their heart, or like a method of showing up on social for the first time? Like, what would you share with them to maybe encourage them to step out of their comfort zone?
Yeah. I think let yourself create for yourself first. And that might feel backwards hearing that from like in the marketing world, where it's so much focused on the audience. But I think you really have to trust that if this is a message that you need, it's a message that your audience is going to need too. You know, we hear all the time that our clients are typically wanting to work with someone that's 5 steps behind, 10 steps behind. So share what is truly on your heart and what you're feeling called to share it, and don't let yourself get so distracted by the shoulds, and remember to stay in your lane and not focus on what everybody else is doing, which I think is so tricky with like competing with the algorithm in social media, where you feel like you need to show up a certain way for it to even be worth your time and effort for it to actually reach people. Whereas podcasting and these other outlets, I think, let you express yourself in a whole other way that just feels that much more authentic, and then you can repurpose that into the short form content, right? So it all feeds into each other that way too. So I think just like really let yourself tap into the message that's on your heart that you feel most called to share. And if you don't know what that is, you need to get in some stillness and actually like get quiet with yourself and really tap into that. Do some deep journaling and let yourself really figure that out. Get some support, some coaching on that potentially too.
Yeah, I know. I love that, especially because I do think that level of like, and I'm sure you see this actually all the time too from like your storytelling work, where you help people with Web of Words, like, with their websites, but also like their brand story and like who they are. I'm sure you get a bunch of people who are like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what I really started to realize too, that was hindering the work in the agency, like for the done for you model.
Yeah.
Where, we'd have these discovery calls and we'd really help them come up with a strategy and like the brand message and the copy for their website or their sales pages or their funnel, and like, okay, here you go, here it is on a silver platter. But if they're not actually embodying that message in the way that they're showing up, that they need to be able to step into that. So it's one thing saying like, this is your story is so powerful. Here it is. Like here it is in the strategy that's, is really going to convert your audience and speaking in their language and mirroring, their pain points and desires. But if you're not at the point where you've done the inner work to actually embody that transformation, there's a huge gap.
Yeah.
And so that's where I feel inspired that I've kind of stepped into doing a little bit more of this work, where I'm supporting more on kind of doing that inner work and like really letting yourself step into your story in a whole other way that's not so rooted in strategy.
No, I love that. And yeah, I think when we like clasp the strategy piece so hard, it's like we don't get the results we're looking for either way, like even I find that with high vibe women, like sometimes like, we sell our tickets, or like, by the time people listen to this, well, you could have bought a ticket yesterday. That was the last day, but maybe DM me if we're not sold out. I don't know. I don't know where we're at, but probably close to sold out.
You should probably extend it just in case.
Okay. If you message me tonight by midnight, October 2nd. But like at this point, we're 85% sold out. And, it is easy to get into the element of like, well, I want it to be sold out.
Yeah.
Like I want a full event. Like I want 200 people there. And I'm also releasing that, and I'm like, everyone who's meant to be there is already there. Like, and if there's 150 people there, it's 150. If there's gonna be 190, it's 190. If, like whatever it is. But I find for myself, if I hold tight, tickets aren't selling.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just want to also commend you for the way that you show up in that event every time, like the 200-person event, no matter how many, from the very first one. I feel like you've had that vision and you've showed up in that way at the same time while keeping it so intimate and like really be in the room that people walk into and feel that sense of belonging that is, so magical and not something that you find in every room by any means. But I think, you show up that way every time. So it is happening. And it's just kind of like letting go of the control over the timing of when it's happening too.
Yeah. Last piece I was just going to say too, but something that you shared as well is like this idea of like, leaning on your community, leaning on your peeps. Like, I didn't know you were going to launch a book when I asked you to do something. Like, really? Like, for October. Like, I was like, when this happens, I was like, I want to get you involved in some way, and I haven't figured out quite what it is yet. And then you were like, I'm going to light a match. Like, I'm going to burn it down. Like, which is amazing. And I think, like, one of the things that I love so much about, like, our friendship, Stacy, Jeanette, like, all of our girls, kind of, like, our close friends, like, what's so cool about it is that there is an element of, like, everybody wants for opportunity for each other. Where we're all like leaning on each other and like being, and that's why it's so important to have those, your quad pod or whatever it is, like your circle of girls or girls, boys, whatever, like people in your life that you can go to, that you can be like, hey, like I'm bringing this to life, and any opportunity you can think of, like to make this like possible for me, let me know. And everyone bends over backwards being like, come on my podcast. I'm going to make an introduction for you. Or like, I want to help you build your personal brand before I even know that you need this. Like, we're all like looking for those opportunities for each other. And I think that's what's so important when building your network and your community is like really finding those like gems, like how I feel about you, where you're like, okay, like I'm like so invested in seeing you be successful, even though like we run like, in some way like weirdly competitive businesses that don't feel competitive at all. But it's like we're so invested in each other. And I think for those of you listening, like if you don't have that crew, like I think it's so important to build it. Like it's so, especially like if you have like big dreams of bringing things to life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's everything. And I think that speaks to again, I just want to show the ripple effect of the work that you're doing and the impact, because exactly that, by you extending this opportunity to me and giving me a seat at the table that you've built, now that's also letting me take a huge step in bringing my dream out into the world. I think we really underestimate those little connections that actually are so big, and the little sparks that end up creating these massive flames, right? And in terms of our growth and overall direction, like that is a huge part of how this is all unfolded for me. And having the High Vibe Women community, like I remember going to my very first one and just how much I felt like, oh my God, I found my people. Like it's so, to me, it also just feels so full circle and so special for this to be an event that's like happening right in the middle of like the thick of the book launch, and being able to share the book in the VIP swag bags and have it be a part of that event as well.
Yeah.
And also then be able to show people like, this is a dream I spoke out loud in March.
Yeah.
And now you're holding it in your hands.
And it's amazing how fat, like I made a joke about this the other day because I posted a picture of me being pregnant this time last year. And I was like, it's amazing like what a year can do, to you. But like, it's so incredible, like what a year, like some vision, some great, like, community, some good coaching, like how all of that stuff can make such a big difference for you. And like, now you're gonna be a best-selling author. And like, that's like, your next level, your next step. And that's just the beginning of whatever is next. And we don't even know what doors are about to open for you. So I'm so excited. Okay, Carly, as we wrap up, I'd love for you to tell everybody, like, tell us the premise of the book, like the heart behind it. I'm going to tell everybody where they can buy it and everything, but tell everybody the premise behind it.
Yeah. Okay. So it's called Coming Home, The Path to Your Favorite Self and Permission to Do It Your Way. And it really is about that journey of coming back to your what I call your favorite self, but you at your most authentic, aligned essence, and showing up in that way and stepping into the power of your story and building the life and business of your dreams that doesn't follow the perfect formula and doesn't get too distracted in the shoulds, or when it does, you're able to come back to yourself and come home to yourself, and just remembering that that's your power is really ultimately doing it your way. So I share a lot of personal stories about my own journey, because I believe, like, again, I if I'm going to talk to you about the power of storytelling, I need to go first and share, my own story and how I've gotten to where I am, and hopefully be that proof of possibility, but most importantly, mirror back a part of yourself that maybe you didn't even see was there, or you've kind of like tucked down and it has been hiding as well. And I hope this is your permission slip to really step out into your most favorite self and see just all the aligned opportunities that flood your way when you do.
Yeah, I love it. I'm so excited. Like I said, I'm more than halfway through it, and I'm so lucky because by the time you listen to this tonight, I get to do like a little Q&A with you at your launch party, which I'm like so honored you asked me to do it, and it's gonna be amazing. And again, like Carly is the most generous, high vibe, kind human. I just love you so much. This whole podcast has basically been us like loving on each other. But there's so much love here, just because I just think you're salt of the earth, and like I'm just so excited. Like it was no surprise to me that everyone's been bending over backwards, like being like, how can we support Carly and all rally? And I know it's not the end of that, but folks, I'm going to give you an opportunity. If you are interested in buying the book, I have left the link in the show notes. Please buy it. But the first 5 people to message me saying they listen to this podcast and share it in your stories, tag Carly. Because, like, again, being an author is a huge dream. It's like she's put out so much love into this book. I know it's going to be a bestseller without this, but like whatever I can do to help. But tag her in your stories. First 5 people, I'll send you the book. But you should buy it anyway. Buy it for a friend. And also just like anything we can do to be supportive to Carly, go give her a follow. Share the link with your friends. But Carly's been so fun chatting with you.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Kristina. Like, I love you and adore you so much. And like I said, you've been such a massive part in this journey for me and especially this dream for me. So being able to now be here with you with the book right in front of us, talking about it and sharing, my experience and story just means everything. So thank you so much.
Oh, I love you to this and more. This is just the beginning. Can't wait to see your next 10 books. We'll have you back on the pod then. I know you have some other book dreams coming up. It doesn't end here. It's not like the bucket list item check off.
It's true. It's absolutely true. I'm like already feeling like the next one's starting to formulate.
Poor Luke.
I know, right?
Your husband's coming for you. Awesome. Well, okay, give this definitely go give it a read. Go give Carly a follow. Go check this out, and can't wait to see you at your book launch. And let us know what resonated with you today.